replacement bus. This bus's VCR broke down last night, and I just called her, and they'll send a replacement bus. It should be here shortly. By the time you're ready to leave, it should be here. So hopefully you'll have your VCR ready today.
Great.
I don't know about Burbank. I know about Inglewood, not Burbank. I don't know about
The year after the stadium was torn down in the winter of 1995. The stadium was constructed in 1946 after the war, and apparently was approved in 1945 for this dedication. And in 1947, on May 30th, the stadium was dedicated. After I talk, we can go around and look at the front of this. The front of this has the two original plaques that they were able to get off intact that were on the gateway as you entered the stadium from this angle over here. The stadium was a fairly large concrete and brick structure, kind of a wood-attached overhanging roof and a large screen in the front, a mesh roof to protect people from foul balls. The dugouts were built underneath. And the stadium used to put, this stadium was used for hardball. The park and recreation department had decided that this facility was more appropriate for recreational use, t-ball and softball leagues for adults, and so consequently the stadium became not part of their plans. The state had dedicated about $300,000 to save the stadium, but after the 1994 earthquake, which further damaged the stadium, the park department got their way and they got approval to destroy the stadium. Many of us lobbied the city council and made it real difficult for them. And we spoke in front of the city council. We did everything we could to save the stadium, but they got their way. And so consequently, you see the little t-ball here. This, where they're playing t-ball, is the exact location of the because they were really hard to field. And like I was telling you, the stadium had, right where the light pole is, was the entryway to the stadium that had these plaques on either side of the entry. The Burbank Historical Society building and museum is on the other side of that large building which houses recreation. And if any of you ever want to come and visit it, it's free to the public on Sundays. And they have an extensive film library. And in the film library are a lot of pictures of the St. Louis Browns doing spring training. They did spring training here in 49, 50, 51, and 52. And their photographs show down the left field foul line the bleachers, which are just straight wood benches filled with businessmen in their suit and hats, and in the parking lot where we are on the far side full of post-World War II vintage automobiles. During this tenure, when the Browns did spring training here, they stayed in one of the little motels up here in Olive. And they had a party every spring, and they hosted with celebrities. There's pictures of Debbie Reynolds, other actresses, and they made a big celebrity event out of this. And some of the one of the teams that came in here and played almost every spring were the Cleveland Indians. And Bob Feller, I talked with him, and he told me that he played against the Browns in this stadium. In 1949 to 50, the DeWitt brothers owned the Browns. And in 51, they were forced to sell out to Beck. And Beck had the team through the 52 season. In 52, when Beck was the manager here, Satchel Paige was on the team. And Paige did not get along with Beck, because Beck wanted him to exercise and work out, and Paige didn't believe in any of that. He wanted to pitch. So Paige used to hide in the outfield all the time so that Beck couldn't see him, so he could get out of training. We've seen a lot of photographs of some of the Browns in 51 and 2. Hank Arp, who hit home runs over the right field fence out here. And I've been to a couple of the St. Louis Browns reunions, and I've talked extensively with a lot of the old Browns that have played here. I'll tell you a little bit more about the Browns and their history a little bit. This is the 100th anniversary of the American League. And in 1902, the Browns came into the league a year later. And in 1954, they became the Orioles. And if any of you have any questions at all during the day about the Browns, I'd love to talk to you more about it. Also, Jeff Tully's here from the local Burbank paper. Jeff did numerous articles during the razzing of the stadium and knows a lot about the history of the city and the stadium. And then Mike Moran. Mike, you want to come here for a second? Mike's one of my good friends. Mike and I met in St. Louis at the bar at the Missouri Athletic Club in 1995 at a Browns game. And Mike goes to every single game and has been very involved with the Browns historic.
And you probably wonder, I live in Pasadena. I grew up in Pasadena. How did I get involved with the Browns? Well, it's because of their playing here, their spring training. The Chicago White Sox used to spring train in Pasadena at Brookside Park. And my mother was a good friend of one of the Browns years earlier, and we used to go up to Brookside when we were little kids. My mom took us up there, and we used to see the Browns play games against the White Sox. I don't remember a thing about the game, but I remember the little impish character on their sleeve. He was a little like an imp, a brownie, they called him. And I remember this thing. I remembered over the years. I used to keep the baseball cards with the brown imp on it until about 1984. A man named Bill Boris started the fan club for the St. Louis Browns. It was a big article in Sports Illustrated. I immediately wrote to him, asked him how you joined. He gave me all the information. Joined it. I became a member in 1987. Finally went back in 1995. I've been going back every year since then. It's one of the great things. There's not too many Brown players left. I'll tell you, about 3 of them passed away in this last year. But just the camaraderie and talking about this ballpark and their days in California and all the times they had playing in the American League. We love it. We enjoy this very much. I wish Joe would come more often. But as a matter of fact, we have next Thursday is our next meeting, Thursday night in St. Louis, and we get about 125, 130 people there, so we have a great time. I thank Joe for that, because he was one of the first guys I met, got me more interested in it. We have a real good time, so that's all I can really talk about. And like he said, the pictures, you'll see the community center there. Back in those days, there weren't as many trees, and all the Browns had their photo ops taken out here in the field. Very prominent. The mountains were in the background, of course. So that, it still looks the same as it did back in 1951, 52, 53. And their very last year, they were the Browns. They actually left Burbank and played 1 year in San Bernardino. And they stayed at the Riverside Mission Inn. And then they became the Orioles. I think they moved to Arizona after that, and that was kind of the end of their days in California.
I'll tell you a couple more things about the Browns. Everybody knows that they had the worst record in baseball, the total worst record. They had the losing record against the Senators and the Athletics. And their record was even worse than the Phillies, which the Phillies used to have, until recently, had the worst overall record. They had more losses than the Phillies. And I was able to go to a reunion with Clarence Marshall for a whole weekend, accompanying him on the airplane. Clarence pitched for the 49 Yankees on that World Series game. He was traded to the Browns in 1950. Now, to get traded to the Browns from the Yankees was not a good thing. And there were 3 of them that were traded in 50, and he said, to show you how bad the Browns were, they were in the first game at home against the Yankees at Sportsman's Park, and the Browns got a runner on first base in the first inning, and they had a hit and run play, and they squeezed this guy over from second base, and they got 1-0 lead. And the 3 Yankees are looking at each other and going, "What is Taylor doing?" And the score ended up like 10-1. They just couldn't believe the mentality of the Browns. The way they play was just so foreign to them. But anyway, the great thing about the Browns is that it was Major League Baseball, and any of us, people like me and Mike and all of us that ever played baseball, would dream to have been a major league, and these guys were major leaguers. It's just a cult chapter of baseball history. Another thing about the Browns, everybody knows that when Beck brought the team in 51, that he had Eddie Goodell with the midget episode, and he also had Grandstand's manager on it, where he put Zach Taylor, the manager, next to the dugout in a rocking chair smoking a cigar. And these people wrote into the local paper, and they selected about 400 or 500 fans. And be in this one section of the stands, and they managed the team. And what they did is they had placards that would stand up. They'd say, should the guy steal second? Who should be put into pitch? And this was a game against the Philadelphia A's with Gus Zernial, who used to play for the Hollywood Stars down here. And they ended up winning the game by managing this team. And of course, the league came down on it. The league told Beck, you can't do this kind of stuff. But one thing about Beck is that he knew how to bring people into the ballpark, he knew how to make it fun, he knew how to make it fun. And Beck thought, like when Roger Maris was chasing that record for 61 home runs, Beck thought it was just ridiculous that Major League Baseball didn't promote that bet because the race was over with at the end of the year. I mean, baseball had no clue how to promote things like Beck. He was a master at that stuff. And when Hornsby was manager in '52, Beck told his mother that he was going to, hire Hornsby. But Beck's father had hired Hornsby to manage the Cubs from 30 to 32, and then had to fire him. And so when he told his mother that he was going to hire Hornsby, her comment was, "What makes you think you're smarter than your father was?" About mid-season, the team had a revolt, and they canned Beck, they canned Hornsby. The players presented Beck with a trophy, and the trophy, I saw the trophy came up for auction. So a lot of this memorabilia is out there. But the Browns are a real special team, and the Orioles now are starting to recognize them as part of their legacy. And if you ever go back to St. Louis to any of these reunions, when we're with the Browns fans club, we get to go into the Cardinals Stadium. When we're with the players, we get to watch the game in the bird nest above, where the owners of the Cardinals are walking around, having a free dinner, and with Stan Musial, Red Schoendienst. It's a phenomenal group of people. And the people in St. Louis love baseball. That's why it's called Mound City. And I recommend any of you that would be interested in this type of stuff to talk to Mike and I about the Browns fan club, because it's only got a few more years left, because when more of these guys are gone, the club will fade into existence. Also, the club issues a book every year on the history of the Browns. They do research. Bill Borster's a tremendous historian, and they have they've completely documented the history of this club. And of course, along with this club goes the history of Major League Baseball during its first 50 years. So, if any of you want to ask questions during the day, I'd love to talk to you.
Any questions while we're here?
Sure. I think he is.
Yes.
Do you know exactly what hotels the players stayed at?
You know, I've talked with some of the players that played back in spring training, and I think that this little Safari Inn or this little hotel across the street here may have been the structure. Like Mike said, in Riverside, at the old Riverside Inn, they played in Riverside, the Mission Inn, I mean, and the Browns trained in 1948 in San Bernardino also, and in 1946 they trained in Anaheim. So they've been connected to Southern California. They also, the Browns were reportedly going to move to Southern California to be the first franchise. And in 1941, according to the reading that I've done, Major League Baseball had approved a move. They were voting on a move to send the Browns to Los Angeles, and a week or two later, Pearl Harbor happened, and it was completely put aside. So they've been very connected to the Los Angeles area.
Could have had the Browns instead of the Dodgers. Be thankful.
Any other pro teams and any other sport that played in this facility?
Yeah, the Los Angeles Rams back in the 50s used to have their practice site here. Merlin Olsen and Norm Van Brocklin. There's pictures, I think, over in, I think they're still over there. There were some of the Rams practicing on this field up until, I think when George Allen became the coach of the Rams, he wanted the Rams to get away from that Hollywood image, so he moved everything down to Long Beach, and they practiced down to Long Beach after that. Yep, many years ago. They practiced right here. I don't know if anybody other than the Rams or the Browns.
Says on this plaque, the Chargers.
You know, if their Chargers were here 1 year, the very first year in Los Angeles, and I wasn't familiar with that, but that probably is true. Before they moved to San Diego, they played their very first year in Los Angeles. The big crowds of about 8,000 to 9,000 at the Coliseum. So you can imagine what that must have looked like. They moved out immediately after that first year went down to San Diego.
In 1951, the Yankees and the Giants swapped spring training. And the Yankees came out here, and I believe the Giants went back before they went. And Mickey Mantle, in his first spring training, took a tour through Southern California. I know that they say the longest home run he ever hit was against the Trojans down there at Boulevard Field back in '51. I don't know if the Yankees played that year there. I don't think they did, but the Giants were doing spring training in Arizona, as we all know, and I believe the Giants played some games. They also played a lot of PCL games. Whether they played the games here or not, I don't know. Maybe Dick could talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah. Any of the Browns players today live in the city of Burbank?
No. There's a couple in Canyon Country. Bob Billinger was the stolen base leader, I believe, in '47. Hale leader in '47. He lives out there. Clarence Marshall lives in Canyon Country. And there's a few around in Southern California that not directly do.
What was the capacity of the park?
I don't know. I know it says that they sold out about 2,500 people here. But the park was a pretty small park.
Sometimes the Browns
They
have
had
brought
temporary
2,500.
bleachers on both sides of the main structure. Right, it was kind of an odd structure. It was right in back of home plate, like the same way the back of the fence. It went like a football type grandstand facing straight out. And then they had temporary bleachers on the third base side and on the first base side when they had the spring training.
When we drive down all, it's kind of impressive sight to see this large stadium structure. We were trying to get them just to keep that structure and put the park beyond. It would have been really impressive, but they thought it was not safe to keep. Yes.
Yeah, who are some of the visiting teams that the Browns play here in spring training?
Well, I know that the Cleveland Indians played here, and I've been trying to look at some of the spring training rosters, and I haven't been able to really find a lot of that. I think
The Cubs played. The Cubs were here. The
Cubs were here.
Pirates. Then you had the teams in Arizona, of course.
Is that when the Cubs were in Catalina?
Yeah, they were in Catalina, and then later on they were in Long Beach at Blair Field.
I think that the Pirates may have played over, was it Net in Glendale?
Brookside. They were in
Brookside?
Brookside Park.
The White Sox.
The White Sox were in Brookside,
What
yeah.
team
Pirates
played
were
over
in
in
San
Glendale?
Bernardino.
That was Stengel Field.
Who was it? San Bernardino.
I don't know if any of the other teams.
Is there anybody here that has any recollection of spring training back then that they would charge to get in with tickets, or was it unstructured?
You had to pay.
You did have to pay?
These spring training games were all part of the revenue stream for the club. They're important to them. Then they take the train, and as they go through Arizona and back, they play numerous games. They'd all be set up ahead of time. They barnstorm through. They'd set up games with other professional teams and some other types of games. They play lots of games.
I think I read where the general admission seats here were $1 something. Does that sound about right? $1.15 or something like that. So it's inexpensive. Yeah.
Thank you.
Where did they train in Anaheim?
The Palmer Club.
Oh, the Palmer Club.
I have an article in my collection showing in the Times a couple of years ago. They did an extensive article on that.
I live about a mile from
I think the park is still pretty intact.
Oh yeah, the park is great.
It's new, but I'd have to find that. If you give me your name, I can get that
Yeah,
information.
Well,
The A's trained at La Palma too. Connie Mack brought him out for like 3 seasons, I
Really?
think. Yeah.
Because I know they were down in Palm Beach, Florida, or West Palm, one of those, and for many years. But I wasn't familiar with that. But I know a lot of them came out maybe 1 or 2 years and then went back to
It was
Florida.
like 2 years. There's a great shot of Connie Mack getting the key to the city of
right?
Anaheim when you're going to school.
well, I want to thank Joe and Mike for their talk. Very informative. Why don't we spend a couple minutes, everybody can kind of walk around the plaques and look at them in a little more detail and read the inscription. And in a few minutes, we'll head back to the bus.
didn't hear that.
And you know, I was enjoying them. Very interesting. And the reason I'm bringing all this up, in one of his books, he goes into great detail about this spirit of
That's the statue of this horse in the big park.
That's right, that's right, that's right.
And that's St. Louis on the horse.
Yep, that's right.
They're
Right. Boy, you bring it all back to me.
And then, you know, they changed that logo. I don't know if they back 1951. They went to the Wrigley Field.
Right. I think that's more of a and more people can relate back in other cities.
Thank you for setting Charlie up like that.
You're going to like how you're stepping over Ziffren.
Charlie, you ready?
Yeah. Okay, we'll do it on the way back to Burbank today, later this afternoon.
All right.
Where's that guy going?
Okay, Mike.
Standing 26 feet high.
Okay, let's head back into the...
We have a lot of those, they're going to get us on the bus, but I might be back to get food tomorrow. We have a lot of those posters, considered for sale here.
Oh, you know, I don't know because they didn't fill us in on that part.
Burbank Public Library. Thanks again.
Are you about ready?
Okay, one more shot.
World telegram in the first decade of the 20th century. Interestingly, Franklin P. Adams sort of like Bill Buckner or Fred Merkel or Fred Snodgrass, tends to be remembered for one of the worst things he ever did. So Tinker to Evers to chance, or Evers to chance. One of those minor.
You know how many double plays they made? It was only like 12 or 15.
No, in 1908, well, the year that Adams wrote the poem, they turned the figures in dispute. It's somewhere, I think, 54, 57.
Oh, that many?
But by contemporary standards, that's nothing. But even by historical standards, I think one of the other teams in the NL would be possibly the Giants. I should turn north. But given the fact that it's a dead ball era, gloves are smaller, the fields are not well maintained, the errors were much higher, players were much faster. The sacrifice bunt is a very important strategy in the game. Removing the double play is a possibility. It's a high end number for that period, but it wasn't that high. And I just noticed, I mentioned to some other folks as we were walking over here, I couldn't help but notice that one of the other monuments has the name of Chase emblazoned on it. And, I mentioned that because one of Hal Chase is in the American League one of Chance's contemporaries, but sort of one of the greatest defensive first basemen of the time. But in terms of his lifestyle and his comportment, he was an evil guy, one of the greatest blackguards the game has ever known. But I thought no, it's somebody else named Chase. But I just remarked on the iron. I've often found very interesting the similarity in their surnames, Chase and Chance. But I just couldn't help noticing the Chase model.
Didn't Chance follow Chase as manager?
Yes, exactly true. After Chase had then gone on to Warhead was welcome in New York and gone on to Cincinnati before at the same time that Christy Matheson took over the Reds. Well, like many players of this period, Mark Card being one of them, basically made a splash in the sporting scene in the late 19th, early 20th century. You could earn very good money, in some cases more money than you made as a professional player after the season by appearing in vaudeville skits, musical numbers, basically designed to just put your name out there and put your face out in front of the public, whether or not many of these people were not. Rube Marquardt was an exception. Many of these people were not professional entertainers, could barely carry a tune or whatnot. But it was, in an era where the media hadn't developed to the extent it has now. This was a chance for people around the country to see these star players. So it was very popular and very common, as Ann mentioned, in the postseason for these players to sort of go on hit the boards, go on the vaudeville tour.
I hate to be the mean taskmaster again, but we got to head back to the bus. But thank. To you, Wayne Wilson, who's the Vice President of Research here at the Amateur Athletic Foundation Library, and he'll take it over here for about the next half an hour, and then I guess we'll meet back in here for our lunch. This is Wayne Wilson. Hey, Wayne.
God, no press. All right, well, welcome to the Amateur Athletic Foundation. I thought it would be, before we go over to the library, I thought it would be a good idea just to come in here and sit down for a couple minutes. I can get you oriented, tell you a little bit of, give you a little bit of general information about the foundation. Then we can go next door and look at the library more closely and talk a little bit about the baseball resources that we have. As Terry said, this is the Amateur Athletic Foundation. We've been around since about 1985. We were created with the surplus funds from the '84 Olympic Games. Our primary function is to support youth sport programs in Southern California, and we do that through a grant-making program and through initiation of our own programs. To date, we've spent about $100 million on, or we've invested about $100 million in youth sport programs in the area, and the plan of the board is to have the foundation continue in perpetuity and continue to make those grants. But in addition to the grant program, we also have a library. The library was opened in 1988. When we started, almost 100% of the collection was material that we had inherited from the Helms Foundation, which was also called the First Interstate Bank Foundation, and at one time was also called Citizen Savings Bank Sports or Amateur Athletic Foundation. So we inherited a very nice collection, and since that time we've about doubled the size of it. The library covers all aspects of sport, and the fact that our title says Amateur Athletic Foundation doesn't prevent us from collecting things about professional sport. So we collect things on both amateur and professional sport. Baseball is one of the stronger parts of the library, but I think probably the strongest part of the collection and the most used part of the collection is the Olympic material that we have. We have the official report of every Olympic Games, every modern games, I should say, beginning in 1896, going through Nagano, and we expect as soon as it's published that we'll get the Sydney report as well. The library is open to the public. We are open Monday through Friday from 10 until 5. We stay open to 7:30 on Wednesday nights, and we're open on the first and last Saturday of each month as well. In a year, we get about 7,000 walk-in users, and we get an equal number of reference calls that come to us by phone or by email or by snail mail. And in the last 3 years, we've really been putting a lot of time, money, and effort into developing a website that includes, I hate the jargon, but I don't know any other way to say it, a virtual library, a library of digital documents that are from our collection and been scanned and put on the site and are available full text searchable on the site. The site last year had about 600,000 user visits, and about half of those users were using the documents that had been converted to paper copy. So it's really been a tremendous boost to us to be able to put these things on the net and to make them as available to somebody in Singapore as somebody from around the corner. And I anticipate that that kind of digital conversion will be a major part of what we will do in the future. We have, I think we've increased library usage something like 80-fold in the last 4 years simply by putting that stuff on the net. If you count usage of that on the net as analogous to a phone call or a user visit, the statistics are just like good. Anyhow, that's what we have been doing. What else can I tell you? Books do not circulate from the library, but people are welcome to use anything. We don't have any material here that is not open to the public with the exception of a few Olympic documents which can't be made public until a certain amount of time has transpired, but just about everything else we have is available. Much of what we have can be photocopied, but not everything because some of the things are fragile. We do have, in addition to books, photographs and film. Sometimes people ask, how can I use that material in addition to just viewing it? The answer is it depends. Depends what the right situation is. If it's something that we believe is in the public domain or that we own rights to, we're happy to make copies for basically the cost of that fee. If it's something that we believe somebody else owns, then we leave it alone. Don't make copies. Okay. Why don't we do this? We'll go next door. I'll show you the library. Talk a little bit about the baseball materials. You can take time, and then if you want to come back here for lunch, that's fine. If you prefer to get outside, that's fine too. That's entirely up to you. And then, of course, the most important question in any library: where's the bathroom? It's out that door and to the right. Okay. What else? Outing, and so on. So it's a pretty good collection of microfilm and late 19th, early 20th century material as well.
Collection online?
Yeah.
Library catalog?
Yeah. Before you go, if you want to pick up a brochure, this will give you hours and all of that, and it also has the website. I know some of you have been here before. I see a number of ECL people.
Is this across the country similar?
Well, there are a number of sport libraries in Virginia. So there are some colleges and universities that have very good. I know we are the only multi-sport library in just a school. We have a meeting about every 18 months, and usually representatives of anywhere from 30 or 40 libraries, people from specialized sport libraries as well as next I mentioned earlier, sport physics index. They're primarily a library of periodicals. They have a fantastic sports periodical collection that covers all aspects of sport. You're not going to
Yeah, I should get you to sign that from the sides there.
She wanted to give you that.
The Rockaway handout? I left about, I don't know, about 25 or 30 acres. Get the word out.
Well, help us enjoy it from you too. It's wonderful.
How about Jack Brown?
This is where the outfield wall would be.
Oh, a few, but he wasn't regular.
Notice that he had Wagner went out on that one.
Yes, he does. See, that building there is right there. That's
St.
That's still there, exactly. Yeah. Where next to it's going. Yeah. That's a good landmark.
That's neat. That's neat. You can see that building. It's still there.
See it right there.
And you can see
There's an alley right there.
One of those buildings is there.
No, what's weird though is there's a parking lot in front of that thing. Wouldn't that have been on the street? These cars parked way have been on whatever this is.
Avalon.
So did Avalon not go through?
No, Avalon was always the main
It's odd.
I don't know if that.
Yeah, you can see
Yeah, that's it, because it has rows of windows.
Look, it has rows of windows. Look, they blocked the window out. So it's the same as Hi.
Yeah, I don't remember that street being closed, not in the late 50s.
Yeah.
There, that really
Down in the smoke pit area out there for the team.
Okay, then there was a street right here that
Right, that was the gates out to the parking lot. You used to go out through that gate there, and we're out to the parking lot.
That's kind of
where
neat.
we're
You get
standing.
configuration from that.
That's definitely it.
See, there's the parking lot right there. So you can see the parking lot of that picture. And that building is here, and this is the building next to it. It's torn down, and here's the street
That's
right
the
there.
street, right.
That's the street. This
Yeah.
building is this building.
This building here.
That
That
one is
building.
gone.
That building is probably still this one here.
Yeah,
That'd be
it's
my
gone.
guess, but
Yeah.
it's gone. There's
gone.
a house there now.
That's right. And here's where the parking lot is. We're standing out here in that parking
In
lot.
the parking lot,
That would have been
east
perfect
of the
to watch
park.
the game. You could have sat in those windows and watched the game perfectly. That'd probably be
Yeah, you probably could.
yeah.
You probably could.
That's where it shows.
The outfield wall would be.
The outfield wall is pretty high, 16 feet.
At this point, we've got another structure very similar to it at the other end of the park that is much newer, Sunset Mission. In fact, we're only in phase 3 of 5 phases on that building. When it's done, it'll have 30,000 casket spaces, and it will then become the largest building in the country. We're doing burials right now at the rate of about 5,000 burials a year, and there are a total of about 350,000 burials here at Inglewood Park Cemetery right now. This is one of our premier buildings. Curt Flood is in the Sanctuary of Radiance, which is a premier spot in the building. So why don't we head over that way? And it's not matched marble like it used to be in the old days. We have a mausoleum on the property called the Golden West. Betty Grable is interred in that property. And in that building, when you go in, you can actually see wood grain and matched marble and statues, and the ceilings throughout are Tiffany stained glass. It's a totally different type of construction than we can do today. But this is the premier type of mausoleum building that we're putting up today. And the Hall of Radiance, as you can see, it has quite active visitation by the number of floral arrangements that you see on the walls. We are standing over a sanctuary that's as large as the entire lot that we just walked across downstairs. There's another whole series of crypts and sanctuaries. So this is a huge building. Yes,
What is the earliest grave here, I guess?
This cemetery opened in 1905. So that the earliest burial would have been from that point on. However, you can go through the park and find people who deceased earlier than 1905. And the first time we're going to cross one of those, how is this? Well, they were interred somewhere else and were brought here at a later time. Inglewood Park Cemetery has we are an endowment care cemetery, which means that anytime anyone buys a cemetery property from us, they have to make a one-time deposit into a trust fund. And that trust fund, when I got here in 1988, was at $18 million. Today it stands at $22 million. And we are not allowed to spend the principal, but we can spend the interest, use that to maintain the park. And we anticipate, because we're putting up structures like this on our property, that we will be actively selling crypts here at Inglewood Park Cemetery for at least another 50 years. 50 to 75 years, and that is a benefit to the community because it enables the community to do burials in town, and families then who want to do visitation don't have to drive 60 or 70. Curious to know what the inside of a crypt looks like. We happen to have an open model here that you can peek into. The way crypts are built, this wall here has tandem crypts on it. They go back 2 deep.
family record. From 1950 to 1968, he had just one general manager, and that was Buzzy Babasi. And before I came here, I asked Buzzy, I emailed him, and
buy the market prices. You want to buy it as a condemnation proceeding.
We got a pretty good deal in LA, $1.
Oh yeah.
the facade, that famous kind of, I guess you'd call it kind of an Art Nouveau design, is the facade is still completely intact. It's the grandstand areas are pretty much torn down, and there's about a little 5-minute vignette there. So we'll take a look at that when we get back on the bus.
And talk about the ballpark design. So I'm going to turn everything over to him, and
right.
Take it away, Jan.
Thank you. Well, this is our NBBJ office here in Marina Del Rey. We have 6 other offices in the United States, and one in London now, just started. And this office here, this studio, focuses mostly on sports work. We are called Sports and Entertainment Studio. NBBJ has other studios also, but this is the major focus of our work. And recently we've done Miller Park, which just opened a few months ago, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. And we did the Dodger Stadium renovation as well, and I have a colleague of mine that will talk about that, and we have a little slide presentation and a few models and photographs, and maybe show you some stuff that you haven't seen that we deal with every day, architectural drawings and models and studies and that kind of stuff. So I hope we can make it interesting for you.
Great.
So let's go. We have to walk across this parking lot. In seeing our studio, we can certainly walk you. I understand we only have like half hour to do it. So if you are interested, we can walk through the studio maybe after we are done and show you some other projects that we are doing. But maybe we'll start. We have a quick presentation prepared for the Dodger Stadium. Heather, if you want to start with that. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the project, and there's a model of it.
And they give you, very close views of the batter, and it's right alongside the dugout. And then underneath these seats, the seats that were closest before, we had excavated into the club. This is a private club. It's called the Dugout Club, and these people have access to these seats as well. And there's some pictures of the new seats. They're the blue seats in the front. Here are the new seats.
Those were the old dugout seats were down below.
Yeah, those low seats that were below. They were right along here.
Right. So the original stadium was back here, and we expanded it out into
the foul territory. That's it.
How many feet from home plate?
We are a little under, I think we are like 50 feet now from the home plate. Yeah.
And these are views of the Dugout Club that's under these seats over here. You really get a sense of that you're underneath the stadium and underneath the seat. There's a ramp that comes in, and there's all this memorabilia along this wall. And there's room for press conferences and for dinner and entertainment during the game. And this is the press area that we had also renovated. We have a new commissary and new facilities. This is the Stadium Club on the 5th level, and this is this model over here, and also provides dining during the game and views into the field. And there's a picture of infused into the stadium.
They may only have a small party of 3 or 5 or 10, whatever, and that's how many chairs they're gonna put in, and they can move around it. Just feels a little different. And when we started out, like I said, Fox became the owner of the facility, and we felt that they did a smart thing, trying to really affect the existing building as little as possible. And this model shows it. And for those of you, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with Dodger Stadium, there's top level. I think there's three rows there.
There's 4 rooms, and there's some offices. Their offices look on that level.
When it was finished last year, the area, these are the dugout, these are the field seats here. The area right behind the catcher, I mean, in person it looks great. Behind the catcher on television, from the center field camera, so looking in over the pitcher's shoulder, was gray concrete, and that's all you saw. And you didn't see people, and aesthetically, it looked like a prison. I mean, if you looked at it on television, it was just gray concrete. There was no bodies visible. Did anybody think consciously, or look what was looking on television before?
Yeah, I think it's this area here that you talk about. There is a...
You can see that.
Yeah.
There's a slide that was perfect that's going to come up in a second. I just wondered if anybody thought about it through looking at it on television, just what it would look like as a TV sport.
Yeah, we did. This wall outside is a translucent panel, so that the light that comes.
I just wondered, are these outfield balls, are they load bearing for the roof?
No, they are not.
Presentation on Wednesday night at the Burbank Central Library. It'll start at 7 o'clock and run for about an hour with about a half hour for questions and answers. I highly encourage everyone to attend this and spread the word. It's a free event. The library auditorium seats about 150. It'll also give you a chance to come out a little.
I kind of echo Terry's thoughts about the group coming out. If it was just this group today coming out Wednesday night, I know it would be a great event. But there's something about people being sort of kindred spirits about baseball history and landmark sites and stuff that I think you would enjoy Wednesday. The name of the lecture Wednesday is called Roadside Baseball, and it sort of falls out of a book idea I've been working on for a couple of years, which is essentially a state-by-state guide to all kinds of historic plaques, and if you can handle it, burial sites. A few of those I've got. And Wednesday night I put together about 50 slides or so from around the country of some places that are kind of my pet favorites in terms of baseball historic landmarks. And we're also going to bring out some artifacts from our little collection at home that Charlie wants to tell you about in a minute, my son, who some of you have gotten to know today.